Hello and welcome to the Keep It Local Maine podcast, where we tell the stories of local business owners and Maine residents and learn more about what they do, who and what inspires them, their challenges, successes, and more. My name is Todd Regalinski.
And I am Kimberly Regalinski.
And we are the publishers of Keep It Local Maine, a local magazine that helps showcase local businesses to the people in and around their communities. Thank you for tuning in to our weekly podcast that you can subscribe to on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can learn more about us at keepitlocalmaine.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram through the links in the show notes. In this episode, we'll be talking with jewelry designer and philanthropist Ebenezer Akakpo. Ebenezer's portfolio spans various mediums and processes. When combined with the visual language symbols or Akindra symbols from his native Ghana, he presents a unique collection of ideas and creations. His jewelry-making passion led him to Florence, Italy, where he studied stone setting and jewelry design and also discovered the world of computer-aided design and manufacturing. He moved to the United States and studied metalsmithing and jewelry at the Maine College of Art in Portland and industrial design at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. In 2017, he founded the Akakpo Design Group in Maine, focusing on designing jewelry, apparel, and home accessories.
Welcome to the show, Ebenezer. We are so glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you. And I'm also honored to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. We're so excited. I was so excited about having you on the show because I am a big fan of your work. And, you know, one of the things that makes your story so compelling is that you started in a very different place from where you are now, both in occupation and geography. Can you tell us how you became a jewelry maker? My
story, it's a very long story, but I'm going to try to make it as concise as possible. I wanted to follow it all. It's this is something I had to learn, you know, I had to learn how to tell my own story because it's very, very difficult to tell the story sometimes since as an artist, we just focus on making. But as far back as I can remember, in my teenage years, I knew that I want to follow the steps of my dad. And I wanted to do that because my dad was an architect. And I always get mesmerized doing technical drawing. And the fascinating thing is that we have to use, the H pencils. They're extremely light. So when you scribe them on paper, it's extremely light. But then once you finish the construction lines and then you want to bring whatever you want people to see to life, that is when you darken the lines and then all of a sudden an object emerges. And to me, that was like, whoa, that's so cool. So the interest of being an architect was my dad was very heightened because of also the drawing. And I love the technical part of it, you know. It's like thinking of something and then bring it to life. That's how it all started. But then my high school is set up in such a way that you have the sciences and the technicals. So as a student in that particular school, you get an opportunity to dabble in both worlds. And that also helps to give you an opportunity, like down the road in the future, to decide which direction you want to go. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to be an architect. So it gave that kind of diverse structure of profession to choose from. And when I completed my high school, my dad was like, no, we cannot all be architects. So he suggested that I should go into jewelry making. So by jewelry making, I had to start off as an apprentice, which I had no idea of. Like I had no idea what it entailed. And the first time I stepped foot in the jewelry space was when I realized that the experiences that I had already some of the experiences I had already gathered from my high school was what I could use to create stuff, which I thought was very, very interesting. Yeah, so it opened a new world for me that I had to explore, and I'm still exploring.
That is so cool.
Wow.
Did I answer the question?
Oh, yeah, no. My follow-up question to that is, what was that like for you emotionally, you know, because you said that you wanted to follow in your father's footsteps and, you know, and him saying, you know, we all can't be architects. Like, how did that feel in the moment? And how has that changed over the years when you look back at that?
So I think, I'm going to tell you that story in two parts. The first part is when at that time, we give respect to the elder. The elderly meaning your parents. Maybe it's the social structure, but the way our social structure, I don't know, is structured, is that you have to pay respect to the elderly. And he's the one paying for the school fees and everything else. So there is a saying, "Emma wenin tra wenin tong." You don't allow your eyelashes to supersede your eyebrows, or no, the other way around. because because one of them came before you, and the elderly came before us. So the elderly is considered to be knowledgeable about the world. So when they tell you this is the direction you need to go, you don't argue with them. You just go through with it, because we believe that the elderly know more. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
by him telling me that, and then on plus that is my dad, I'm not going to argue with him, because I figured, well, one, he's the one who's going to pay for it. Secondly, he knows best. He knows what is good for me. So I don't think he's going to lead me astray. Now, the second part of it is actually this year, past 15 July, would have been 10 years since my dad passed away. And on his 75th birthday, I happened to be in Ghana. So I woke up very early morning. This is the second part, actually. So I woke up early morning and I went to him to wish him happy birthday in the morning. And then I asked him two questions. The first question was, if he were to do things differently, what would he do differently? Like, if he were given the opportunity to do everything all over again, what will he change? And then he said, nothing. Because what God has written about him to do is exactly what he did. Wow. And I was like, oh, okay. So then my second question was, why did he ask me to go study jewelry making instead of following in his steps to be an architect? And then he partially blamed me. So he was like, well, you live in the US, right? Do I live there with you? I said, no. He said, okay, so if you had really wanted to be an architect, you would have been an architect. And I was like, oh, but I thought I was respecting you as my dad. Do you understand? And then he also followed by saying, well, at the time when he suggested I should go into jewelry making, it was because at the time, architects had to depend on the government for big projects. Mm-hmm. And whenever there is a change in government, it affects the payment structure. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want me to go through that, because it's very, very difficult for them to pay their workers when the government does not follow through on projects that they've already agreed on. So he didn't want me to go through that. He wanted me to be my own boss. He wanted me to have control of my own destiny. And that was part of the reason why he thought going into jewelry making with the experience that he thought I had, or the potential that he thought I had, it would be better for me to go that route.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, we might need to have you come in and explain this to our daughter at some point when we're helping fund school. That whole pay respect to the elders thing. We might call in a favor. Yes. I'm just saying.
A lot of parents could use you,
because you explained it so well.
You explained it so well.
So your website says you have a story, wear it. How does that tie into the symbols that you use in your designs?
I love that.
So it's actually, the taglines is actually a work in progress as well. Mm-hmm. I think I've come to a point where I believe that when they say work hard, I think when people tell you work hard, I don't think it really means just keep working hard, but I think it means that whilst you're working hard, the angels around you, they see your struggle. And for me, I see it more like a video game, right? Where you're playing a video game, you're trying so hard to get to the next level, and then you get help. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then they throw a bone at you, like, okay, take this one. That's going to help you to go to the next level. And the tagline has been that way. Like, I've been trying for so long to figure out what kind of tagline to use. Just this past weekend, I actually used a different tagline, which said, gift differently, gift with meaning. You see, so it's like, it's something that I'm playing around with, because I've realized that anytime I'm doing shows and I explain to people what I'm doing or the idea behind what I do, the first thing that jumps to mind is for them to think of somebody else, not even themselves. They're always thinking, oh, okay, my cousin is going through hardship. I have a friend who just had cancer, or my friend who is going through chemo. I keep hearing these stories, and so it's one of those things that I'm playing around with the taglines, trying to figure it out, like trying to figure out what works. So at the time when I said you have a story, word, it's like the pieces have stories in them. The stories comes from the symbols. Now, the symbols that I use to create the patterns disappears in the pattern. So if you have no idea what it is, it looks like a beautiful piece, right? But once you get to know that there is a story behind it, which I think it is peculiar to the individual. The interesting thing about that, I don't know if this is philosophical, but it is my own philosophy. I realized that, and this is something that it was like an experimentation that I was doing on Congress Street one day. And as I was walking to class, to Maine College of Art, the people that I kept meeting on the road, I was like, wow, I have the power to bring them into my world. Which means that I have the power to extend myself to them and say, hey, my name is Ebenezer. What is your name? And to bring them into my world by me trying to know them and them trying to know me. That to me is a very powerful thing.
Yes.
And I see, so over the years, I've come to realize that that is what I'm actually making. Like when you look at my piece or when somebody wears my work, they know the meaning, which means that the individual walking down the street, they have their own story. But they are going to make the decision, a conscious decision, to share that story with you or not to. And I also realized that we have friends and we also have friends. All right. So we have friends that we talk about food. We have a friend that we talk about clothing. We have a friend that we talk about school. But out of all those friends, we have one friend that will know everything about everything that the other friends know. All right. Which means that we decide to share which part of our story we want to share at any given time. And that to me is very unique. And that is what I try to apply in the pattern creation. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, number one, both of those taglines are great because I think I can see where you would change it up because you want it to be, thinking outwardly, but also, it is like you were saying there, the pattern can kind of get lost in the design until you learn what it is. And then that person shares what it is and what it means to them and things like that.
Yeah.
But also that idea of like you're saying, welcoming other people in and thinking of others. And that idea of thinking of others in terms of a gift,
yes,
which I think comes much more naturally to some people. And unfortunately, I am not one of those people who think in terms of gifts. Kim is very much a gift giver, and I have to work at it really hard because that's not my first instinct. But I'll think about the meaning behind the meaning of something in a heartbeat. Let me go ahead and overthink something, and I'll be good for a half hour just sitting in a corner letting the wheels turn. So I think that both of those working together kind of appeal to both sides of people's nature. So I think that's really interesting that you're kind of approaching it from both of those sides.
For sure.
Yeah. Just to add to what you just said, like imagine thinking you're just an ordinary artist and you are creating work. And then you go to do a show. And for the first time, that was when I started making my goblets. Because I realized that a lot of people make jewelry. So people will come to be like, oh, I already have an earring. Why do I need an extra earring? But because of my experience also as an industrial designer and the opportunities that I had when I did an internship in Taiwan, I started thinking of how to diversify what I create. So imagine creating this goblet and then a lady walks into your booth and said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And then I explained to her that I use symbols from my native country, Ghana, to create patterns. And then I apply the patterns to my work. And then then she said, "Oh, I don't wear jewelry." And I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you this. I don't know how you feel about it, but I just made this last night." And this was from a pattern with a symbol of hope. Mm-hmm. When I took it out, without even explaining, this lady saw hope and she just grabbed the goblet from me. So out of curiosity, I was like, why do you want this? Why this particular symbol? And then she looked at me square in the face and said, "I lost my husband last month."
Wow.
And then she started crying. And I said to her, the symbol hope means that God is in the heavens listening to our prayers. That is way beyond me.
I need some tissues.
Yeah, I mean, that's
that just hit me.
It's so amazing how stuff can just have that extra meaning to people. You know, and it is so like visceral. It's just you don't think about it. It just happens.
And it's just something you've created. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. So can you tell us, what is your design process like? And you have a path, you follow when making a new piece, is it each one a new journey? Is it, I'm going to follow this path, or is it just this journey that you're on?
I think once again, when they say when you want to make a journey, it starts with the first step, right? And I think my design process is the same way. Like, I used to think that I have to be in control of the design process, but I've also come to realize that I have to allow the design process to lead me or to guide me. And that has been the case of, and it all depends on what I'm creating. Like, I'll be designing for a coaster, and then it will click. And I realized that the way I designed the same symbol, or the way I created the same pattern for an earring, it's actually better for me to use the process that I'm using for the coasters, for the earrings, and for the earrings for the coasters. Does that make sense? It's very interesting the way sometimes it happens. So I used to fight the process, but I've also come to understand that I have to let the process guide me. And most of the time it will start with a sketch, or it will start with me dreaming. So in my mind, I'm creating this pattern. And then most cases, I've come to also realize that the biggest mistake that I was making was trying to use the symbol to create a pattern. But I've realized that using the negative space of the symbol helps me to create what I want to create. And in the process, the symbol comes out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a matter of, like you say, letting the process work and just kind of letting the thing be what it kind of wants to be, which is a really weird thing when it's like, oh no, I'm creating it. Like, well, but a lot of writers I've heard, they'll say, oh, this character wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Well, you're writing the character. You invented them out of thin air. Like, no, this is what the character wanted to do, and this is the story they wanted to tell, and it just sort of you have to listen to it and just kind of follow it sometimes. And I think that's so beautiful the way you put it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone wants to see what these symbols are that we're talking about, go to Ebenezer's website, which I will link in the show notes, and they're beautiful in just by themselves. Absolutely. But then to actually see the patterns and the designs that you make from them is something that it just kind of blows my mind when I see it. Yeah. But you use metal, wood, and plastics in your pieces. Do you have a favorite material to work with, or is it just sort of like whatever? Do you go through phases, or is it just whatever seems to work best for the project?
So my life is just stories. Everything I say, I think is stories. It's made up of stories. Mm-hmm. So prior to attending RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, by the way, I told myself, and this was when I was doing, I was a contract jeweler for Zales. I told myself, I'm not going to make anything in silver, and I'm not going to make anything in brass or copper or anything less than that. Everything that I have to do will have to be gold or platinum. Mm-hmm. And then I went to RIT. And in that same building, on our first floor, is a wood department, like furniture. And I became friends with one of the guys who I think at the time was a senior. And I was amazed that this guy, it's almost like when he takes the plane to plane the piece of work that he's working on, it's like every single layer that he takes off, to him, it's like treating gold. And I was like, I did not understand why. I mean, in my mind, it's just wood. So why are you treating wood as if it is gold? That's what I asked the guy. And then he said, I have taken it from the earth and I'm repurposing it. So I need to treat it with ultimate respect. That is what also changed my life in regards to respecting the type of material that I use for my work. So over the years, I try to give the same amount of respect that I give to gold or platinum, to wood, to brass, to plastic, and to felt. But they also all serve different purposes. And you have people who like specific products, not because of the design, but because of the material. So that is what I began to see. And I try to give each material that I use in my process the same respect that I would give if it was gold or platinum.
That's awesome. That's such a powerful story. There's so many stories in just what you just said.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Well, if you listen to someone who works with wood, or well, I mean, and you can, I'm sure a sculptor who works with marble or whatever would say the same thing, that if you work with a material on a daily basis, and you and like Ebenezer said, you really give it the respect that it is due, there is beauty in every little bit. Absolutely. Just waiting for you to notice.
Yeah.
Like you listen to people who work with wood, and when they talk about different, there's a plank of wood there, and you're like, oh, that's a plank of wood. They're like, no, you don't understand. Look at the grain, look at the texture, look at this, look at that. This tree, and they can tell. They're like, this tree was 300 years old, or things like that. And you don't think about that if you're not in that, and then you listen, you're like, oh wow, I've got chills listening to that.
I had chills. There's such a passion that goes into that.
It is.
It's amazing,
So can you tell us about the Better Water Maker project and what that's about and how people can be part of that?
So with the Better Water Maker project, it all started off when I was in RIT. But before I went to RIT, I had this mindset that I was only going to design extremely high luxury products. I didn't care about anything else. There was a company called Virtue, and at the time, they were making like $50,000 cell phones. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. But prior to that, I also wanted to specialize in computer-aided design and manufacturing. And I felt like RIT was the place for me. And I felt like RIT would be the place to give me the resources and the experience that I needed to be able to create these luxury products. So everything I thought about at the time was about luxury. And then we had a class trip to the Cooper Hewitt, I think it's called the Smithsonian Museum in New York. And at the time, they had this show designing for the 90% of the world population. And out of curiosity, I was like, okay, what does this mean? And then we entered the space, and that was the first time I saw live straw. It's just like about 1 inch in diameter straw with built-in filters that if you happen to be camping or being like someplace in the developing country where the water is not safe to drink, all you need to do is just grab that live straw, drop it in there, pipe the hell out of it, and then drink the water. And, there were other technologies that were presented, but all was to aid developing countries. And I was like, so why 90%? And they were like, because the 90% of the world population are considered to be poor or they live in poverty. So all these luxury design products only target 10% of the world population. With that in mind, after the show, on our way back to Rochester, I started thinking of, okay, so when I was growing up, there were issues that at the time I thought, if I had like a magic wand, I could fix. And I started thinking, okay, dialing myself back into those moments. How can I use design as a tool to solve some of these problems? So I started going through a series of problems that when I was a kid, I experienced. And one of them was like we have public transportation, and every time there is an accident, a lot of people die, or a lot of people get hurt or injured. And it did not occur to me that, and this was now going back to the US. The first time I owned a car in the US, I had a puncture tie. Like one of my tires got bad. And when I took it to be fixed, they were like, in my mind, I have to just replace one tire. They were like, no. You need to replace both tires. I'm like, what do you mean? It's just one tire that's gone bad. That's busted, right? They're like, no, that it has to be the same brand for the front and the same brand for the back. And they can be two different brands, but they have to be the same speed rating. So this was like, whoa, how many people in my country knows this? Or even in developing countries know about this? Because we are getting used tires from all over the world, from Germany, from Japan, from America, everywhere, right? And a lot of people will just go and buy one tire because that's what they need. So are people educated about this? So I wanted to create a system to help educate people on that thing. So that became one of my problems. The second problem was plastic pollution. We don't have, now we do, but we still do sachet water. So instead of having water in bottles, one of the economical way of selling water is putting water in plastic bags, which are sealed. And when people finish drinking, they just chuck it in the gutters, or they just throw it down the ground, and then the plastic finds its way into the gutters. When it rains, it creates flood. It becomes a place for mosquitoes to breed. So that was my second problem. And then my third problem was water. So then I figured, okay, maybe the water would be the best choice to go with. So that's how the water project started. So I actually made a trip to Monroe Water Works in Rochester, New York. I went through the plant to see how the process from beginning to end. So from the lake all the way down to people's homes, how it works. So that my goal was, how can I shrink that process into a tabletop project or into a tabletop water filtration system for developing countries. So whilst I was thinking about that, my head of department thought it was a very good idea. But there was this other company called B9 Plastic that were also doing something similar. And the owner of the company, his name is Bob Bechtold. So Bob Bechtold at the time will pay his engineers he will pay them on their free time to do something that can help humanity. And because Mr. Bob Bechtold is very good at that. Like he's all about what can I do to sustain this world, So when he also heard about what I was doing, we had a meeting and I realized that there was a lot of cross-pollination. But because they had the money and the technical ability to bring some of these things to life, I started focusing more on the human factor and making sure that the system actually works. So that's how I started working with them. I don't want to say maybe partnering. Yeah. So I started partnering, and I was able to take the UV system that they had already started working on. So I took that UV system with me to Ghana to do field studies, which they had not done at the time. So I did the field studies, I did the testing, making sure that it actually eradicated E. coli, salmonella. And then I was also thinking of how to make it presentable to people, to their homes. I started thinking of the different tiers where how do you design for people in the village versus people in the city versus somebody who can actually use it to make money. So I was thinking about the three different tiers. And then I was thinking of color. I was thinking of easy way to use the system. I was also thinking of the the breakables and how to fix that, how to change material. So it was a very, very, very interesting and fun project.
That's
I
great.
still work with them on it. I'm not hands-on like I used to because Mr. Bobecto's daughter took over. But what happened was that when I was doing the testing on the field, I was also asking people if they would like to buy it. And I realized that most of the people were more interested in buying a cell phone than buying a UV unit that's going to save their lives. And it also boils down to me doing a presentation to UNICEF. And I remember one of the guys telling me, this UNICEF in Ghana. And I remember one of the guys who was present during my presentation, who was like, well, it's a very good product, but good luck, convincing the people in the villages to buy it because they're going to tell you that their great grandfathers and, like live to be 90 years old. So they don't see the importance of purchasing or investing in such a system. And I was like, okay, but the UV is actually going to help them it will help us cutting down trees because we're not cutting down trees to boil the water. You have a UV system that's actually, so I'm looking at it from a different point of view, but they're also looking at it from a different point of view. So I decided to add that part of structure into my design whereby I was asking people. And then there were about 90% of the people were like, yeah, if we get it for free, we like it. And that was when the jewelry making kicked in again. So then at that point, I was like, okay, we have these symbols. I've been thinking about how to use the symbols in a unique and innovative way. Most of the people are wearing plastic earrings, but the earrings they're wearing are geometrical shapes and colored. So what if I take the color, I take the material, which is the plastic, and then I combine it with the symbols to make earrings? Then they're going to buy something that they're familiar with. And then 70% of that proceeds, it's going to go to provide the UV system to a family that needs it.
That's
so
fantastic.
that becomes a win-win situation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how. Yeah. Go ahead.
That is great. I mean, that is like going from, that is using every single tool that you have in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Like that to that entire process. That is amazing.
I need to go buy some earrings. I'm going to go start my Christmas shopping. Yes.
Well, it was great up until that moment. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to go start Christmas shopping.
Kidding.
I'm going to make my list.
I'm kidding. I actually saw stuff on there where I'm like, that's awesome. But I can't wear it. And
well, that's why I have the goblets and the water bottles and the coasters and the trivets.
I know. I love it.
There we go. Now I'm in. Now I thought I was going to escape. Now I'm in.
Yes.
So one of the things that we always like to ask, because we are kind of inspiration junkies, is how do you define success?
Wow, that's a very good question. How do I define success? Somebody asked me I think about 2 weeks ago, during a craft show, and the question was, "How did you do today?" And I told them, even if only one person came and bought my work because they appreciate what I did, I think I have succeeded.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I think success can be, people can get a little too big picture with success. That is a great view of kind of a very simple definition and a very simple step to overcome. And that way, to me, it's not lowering of a standard. It's like, well, do you enjoy what you do? Okay, well then,
absolutely
great.
Yeah.
Boom, there it is.
Yeah. So we always like to ask this question too, and it's something that we feel like we learn a lot through this. Who or what inspires you?
Another good question. So my inspiration, I would say, has been more like a wavelength. It goes up and down, right? And it went from me thinking I want to, like me loving what I'm doing and creating something just because somebody likes it. And then to, okay, now I'm going to create something because I want to make money. Then it went to, I want to create something because I want to help. But lately, it has come down to the point where I've realized that what is inspiring me is beyond what I am making. because as much as I think I'm the one in control, I don't think I am. I think I am just being a channel or a vessel presenting to the world something that I've been ordered to do. And that is what I'm doing. So the person who buys from me is the one that completes the story.
That's awesome.
So
That's
yeah.
great.
I think that's it. Yeah.
You're using the gifts that you've been given to really change the world.
A step at a time. It's not easy though.
Yeah.
No, it never is. It never is.
Yeah.
Very few things that are worthwhile are easy.
That is true.
But that's also the beauty and the feeling of success afterwards.
Yeah, yesterday I happened to be in Boston because my cousin's husband, Emmanuel, who has been very instrumental in growing this business. Like, he's always with me when we're doing shows, traveling to New York and Boston and back and forth. And because I did the Portland Fine Craft Show on Saturday, he held the fort down in Boston, and then yesterday, and I happened to go there a little bit later. When I got there, he was like, "Oh, this lady came and bought an earring. She bought a greatness earring, and she said the last time she was buying something, I told her, because she was asking me which of the symbols do I think suits her, and I said greatness, and then she said it worked."
It's awesome.
So she came back and she wanted to buy greatness earring, and I was like, what? So I think sometimes we say things that maybe at the moment that's what we're supposed to say,
Yeah.
Or somebody comes and so you remember the story I was telling you about the hope, about the goblet?
Yes.
Another lady comes and buys something about hope, and I said, why? And she said, oh, my daughter lives in Brunswick. She's had 4 miscarriages, either 3 or 4 miscarriages, and I want to give her hope.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and then people come and, oh, my friend is going through chemo. My friend had cancer. I want to give her coasters so that anytime she sets up her glass on it, she remembers that, she's not alone.
That's awesome. That's going to be inspiring to you.
I'm just doing my part. Yes, I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, it's always I think there's a certain level of kind of honor, or a certain level of just this overwhelming feeling of gratitude when people are open enough and kind enough to share their story with you, and to be able to receive that, and to then kind of be part of the story, even if it's kind of in a peripheral way, is a bit of an honor. So
sure.
And of course, we're very honored that you decided to share some of your stories with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for being on the show with us. We certainly appreciate it, and I will have links to your website, of course, and all the social media pages as well, so that folks can look at those, and people can order things right through your website. Correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, so place your orders.
Place your
and
orders,
look at all
people.
of those, because it is absolutely gorgeous. And this is coming from someone who, honestly, I am not a jewelry person. Even for a guy, and Kim will attest right now, the wedding ring that I have is titanium. I got it specifically because it was cheap and I couldn't break it. Those are my two. Those are and it was actually more like, I just want something I can't break. Can I get one of those? Yeah. And they were like, oh, we've got something for you.
Actually, if there's a symbol that speaks to you, I can put some designs on the inside for you.
Oh,
there we go.
That.
Yeah,
see, and it'll help class up this little just silverish looking thing.
Yeah,
but we will be talking, Ebenezer.
No
even for someone like me who isn't a jewelry person, these are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. It's work of art. It really is truly art. Truly an art form, and we're excited that again, thank you for being here, and just excited to help share your story.
And we wish you further success, and just going forward, just more stories for you to share with other people, and for them to share their stories with you as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, please. And I also want to say thank you so much for your time and for this opportunity to spread my wings a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, have a happy birthday. You're here on your birthday, so happy birthday again to you.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
And thank you
Our
again.
lives are filled with stories, so it's good. So thank you.